This is Ed Saltzberg, and I welcome you to Part 3 in our GSA Schedule Bootcamp webinar series. And in this session, we're going to be discussing how to meet revenue goals using the GSA schedule. Well, actually, it's using the GSA schedule to feed a pipeline, and other sources of revenue will also be feeding that pipeline. We'll deal with capture proposals and pipeline management. And speaking for Jamie Bratten, who's the president of EZGovOpps, and Jennifer Schaus, president of Jennifer Schaus Associates, and also Jimmy Baker, who's not here today. We're going to really run through quite a lot of information about the GSA schedule. We're going to review what we did in Part 1 and Part 2, and then we'll get into the pipeline management part of this. Very often when you come to webinars, you hear what it is you should be doing. And that's always good to know what to do. And you know, the real question is how to do it. I mean, what we're trying to do is win more work. How we're going to do that is the real issue. And we'll be delving into the how today more than we have in past webinars. So we'll review Part 1 quickly. Jennifer will do that. And then I've wound in the Part 2, the research, run rates, and execution, into the beginning of the meeting revenue goals on at least into the beginning part of the actual pipeline management part that I'm going to do. And Jamie is going to be supporting us like he has in the past, showing us how to use a tool to actually get the information. What's good about the EZGov tool is that it's all in one place, and you can get access to a tremendous amount of information. And the real question is, well, how do you use that tool in order to develop a pipeline of opportunities for a GSA schedule? I want to thank the various sponsors that we have, especially Set Aside Alert, which is just a great newsletter for small businesses and 8A firms. Set Aside Alert is a monthly emailed subscription service. It just gives you a tremendous amount of background information about the impacts of what agencies are doing on small business and procurement-specific information. I just highly recommend it. And then the various presenters also support the event overall. I want to call your attention to a paid session that Jimmy Baker and I are doing. It's a two-part session. We call it Hunt, Capture, and Win. We try to keep the price down on this, but each of these sessions are 90 minutes, and we delve very deeply into how to find the opportunities, follow the money, and then what it takes to put together an effective capture program. And you can go up on either of our websites in order to see that. Registration is open for the first one, but not yet for the second one. It's pretty inexpensive what you're going to get here. So as I said, we'll review Parts 1 and 2, go into pipeline management demonstration, give a lot of tips on how to develop an effective pipeline using the GSA schedule, but what we're going to talk about is not unique only to GSA schedules. And then we're going to open questions up to the audience. And on your GoToMeeting panel, you'll see a little question box there. If you type in your question, we'll try to get to as many as we can at the end. There's also a little hand that you can click if you'd like us to turn on your audio, and you can ask the question yourself directly. So Jennifer, if you would just review what you did in Part 1. And those of you who have come to the session, you know Jennifer's a real expert on how to get and use the GSA schedule.
Great. Thanks, Ed, for the warm introduction, and thanks, everybody, for joining us on the line today. As we reviewed in our first series 2 weeks ago, we talked about the GSA schedule and that it is only a marketing tool. It's not required to sell to the government, and it's one of many contract vehicles that are out there. So the real important factor that I'd like to stress is you really want to conduct that market research with the help of Jimmy Baker and with the help of the information that you can find in EZGovOpps to find out who are your ideal clients, how do they purchase. You really don't want to make a decision to get a GSA schedule just because your neighbor has one or you thought it might be a good idea because you see the GSA logo everywhere. Again, it is just one of many contract vehicles, and it does come with some pretty strict terms and conditions. You can almost equate the GSA schedule to a marriage. The GSA schedule, it's a 5-year contract with 3 5-year renewable periods. So in essence, if you go through all the option renewals, then it's a 20-year contract. And I guess your average marriage also lasts about 20 years. Another comparison that I'll use is that 50% of marriages end in divorce, And right now, 60% of GSA schedule holders are not meeting the sales quota, which is $25,000. So that means you need to bring in $25,000 of sales through your schedule. If you don't meet that requirement, they will cancel your schedule. So before you invest the time, which there's a lot of time and effort and proposal writing to get onto the schedule, you really want to make sure that it is the right contract vehicle for you. And with that, we can move on to the next slide. As far as our services, we do help companies get onto the schedule. We also have many clients who, once they're on the schedule, we help them with maintaining that, making price changes, adding products, adding services, adding additional schedules, or adding additional special item numbers within that schedule. We also do help with audits and renewals. And the audits, it's not a matter of if, it's really a matter of when. Typically, GSA will come out twice within the first 5-year period. Once is kind of an initial meet and greet, but they still will go through all the basics and require you to furnish invoices and all the paperwork that makes your schedule compliant, and then they come out again just before the renewal for the next option period. So those are the services that we provide, and we can move on to the next slide, which has my contact information. We're in downtown Washington, D.C., and happy to help you with any of the GSA schedule services. So thanks for your time, and I will turn everything over back to Ed.
Thank you, Jennifer. And so, Jamie, now that an organization has a GSA schedule, how are they going to figure out what to do with it? Where are they going to find the information so they can build a good pipeline of opportunities?
Good question, Ed. Basically, in a market intelligence tool, it provides many opportunities, not just from the GSA angle, but we're going to focus on that a little bit today. And Ed, if you can go to the next slide, please. What I've done is basically just taken a couple of snapshots of the EZGovOpps tool to give you just a quick overview. And we're actually going to have a short bit, a video about 3 minutes in duration, to give you a little bit of a visual aspect of actually driving a search, so you're getting a little better depiction of that. And the video itself, it's kind of self-explanatory, but again, I'm going to do a little voice overview of that to kind of give you a little bit more detailed definition as to how it flows. But the first screenshot you're looking at here basically is it's a little pop-up to kind of describe what I search for, just a quick search within the GSA scene. Basically, GSA, they call it the Federal Acquisition Service, and the data that actually comes into the market intelligence tools. And this particular search, I just went back 3 years in a sense of actual data, in a sense of a quick search. And Ed, if you can go to the next slide, please. Now, what that represented, again, 3 years of data with GSA, just Schedule 70, it's a staggering number. And if you look at kind of in the top left-hand corner, it's 53,151 results, predicated on that quick search. And that's just Schedule 70. Obviously, with the other GWAC contracts, with the Alliance and with vets and all the other GWACs that are available out there, there's plenty of opportunities to actually find those, those contracts obviously suit you best. This particular representation, represents, the availability to actually do not just a broad search. You can actually look for contract completion date ranges. You can look for certain NAICS codes. Obviously, you can search by, by place of performance, what we call POP. You can generate map views to actually visually show you that, for example, the state of Texas or California might be the heavily populated states for opportunities within Schedule 70 or whatever search that you actually want to do. You can also generate an actual bar chart showing the top performers. See what your competition is actually doing and winning within this particular segment, Schedule 70. So it gives you a lot of advantages to kind of elevate your game to kind of to the next level. And also you have another availability, what we call a scatter chart. This is relatively new to the actual market intel world, because the scatter chart is a very complex chart, what we call XY axis chart, where you can actually chart with plot points predicated on any kind of search that you do. And in the base search within our tool, you can actually refine this and exponentially many more layers. For example, multiple NAICS codes with the initial search. You can add other NAICS codes, other agencies. For example, if you're not just focusing on GSA, you can add other agencies of focus and do all that search literally at one time. You can export the data, obviously with outside the walls of our tool as well, and you might want to do some different analysis. A lot of the bigger primes will actually do that. They have their own special apparatuses created especially for them to kind of do a little bit extra intel. And Ed, if you can go to the next slide, please. Now this slide basically represents just a quick overview of one particular GSA contract, and GSA is known for having a lot of zero amounts for what we call obligated contract values. The base and exercise options, which is, and again it's hard to actually see on the screen, but put a little caption, a little call out. This particular contract was part of a $7 million contract for this ERS Enterprise Computing Solutions. That is Schedule 70 recipient contract holder. And when the purchase orders that actually obviously come out for this particular company, they won the main contract for a little bit over $7 million, and then purchase orders obviously just keep coming out thereafter to fulfill that agency need. So this is just a quick snapshot, quick overview of some of the bullet points as to the agency itself, a little bit more of a snippet about the particular company itself, and the top right block where it says vendor details. Basically describes in a little bit better light about how many employees that particular company has currently, their revenue, their DB number. There actually is within our tool the availability to actually click in that box to actually get a broader view. You can actually see, and through integration with company modules, you can actually see basically every contract. Quite frankly, they won for the last 14 years. If it's a GSA contract or if it's, Seaport E or, any other specialized funded program or GWAC or, any prime contract overall, that you basically get a giant portrayal, a giant picture, snapshot to kind of reveal every contract they've won. So that's very powerful, all within the integration of looking at one contract summary page, and again, being able to, through one little pop-up to go to another window to literally adapt and go to another module altogether. So a great venue to be able to do that. It talks in detail about the contract completion date, basically who funded this particular contract, if it's another agency itself that obviously had a need, and through a special program, obviously Schedule 70 that they were able to fulfill their needs. So a lot of intel provided within this snapshot. So this is actually multiple pages. So, and if you can go to the next screenshot. Now this basically is just a little bit of overview about ERS Enterprises. This basically talks about what I was just sharing a couple of seconds ago about the availability of integration, where you actually go to physically through the pop-up, go to another module, and you get a quick little snippet about this particular company. And then at this particular juncture, you can actually elevate and go to a full view. So Ed, if you can go to the next slide, please. Now this basically is a kind of a composite of the contracts that because of speed, it will reflect 100 at a time, and this particular company, I think, won 13,000 contracts, so it's pretty insane for this particular client. But this contract holder basically allows, through this visual aid of seeing a composite snapshot of all these contracts, you can actually click on everything that you see in kind of a strong blue to the left column, and actually view each one of those specialized contracts that are all part of the makeup of listing of every one of the contracts that particular company has won. Again, be it if it's a Seaport E or if it's GSA, or be it whatever, it's a composite snapshot of all their contracts, showing all the contract completion dates and so forth. That's one of the extreme advantages of market intelligence, that it can create that bigger picture where you don't have to just take data from FPDS, from obviously FBO and Seaport E going to their site, obviously aggregate some data from that particular source. The true purpose of market intelligence is to take all those data sources, again, paint a bigger picture, give you a much more depth of specifically what's involved with that particular contract and a history of that particular company, and obviously what their focus is, and moving forward, if they're perhaps competition, specifically what their focus is. So Ed, if you go to the next slide, please. What we're going to do now, we're going to play a little video snippet. It's about 3 minutes in duration. I'm going to do a quick broad overview of, this is kind of a live action here, so keep in mind, it'll look much better on your individual screens that this is just a little YouTube video. Ed, if you can broaden that a little bit bigger on your picture on the screen, that would be terrific. There you go. Perfect. Yes, if you can blow it up a little bit.
It's going to come up on the large screen of eVisible.
Yeah, go ahead and click on that. It's perfect.
Yeah, did it come up as black?
Yeah, it came up as black.
Probably something you said.
Well, we can keep it small. We can start at the beginning. We'll keep it small and kind of progress through. Now I have this available as a public link, so anybody can have access to that, and I know Ed will release the slides to everyone once we're done, and we'll be able to take care of that. What this little video does is basically it's a live action. I did a quick search, and what I did is I compared 3 different agencies, and those 3 agencies I believe was Food and Drug and Food and Nutrition and another agency. I wanted to do specifically, I wanted to put myself in the shoes of a typical government contractor. A typical government contractor trying to find contracts that they're not sure what agency actually to focus upon. So what happens is that in this specialized tool, you can actually bring up 3 agencies at once. You can actually diagnose as to what agencies are the best to physically target predicated on your needs. If your expertise is a certain NAICS code, if it's project management 541611, and you want to focus on 3 agencies that that hey, these are 3 agencies, agencies up and coming. You might have read an article, got intel from some friends or cohorts or, what have you through the industry. You can actually put those particular agencies in as a specific search and actually do a side-by-side comparison. So in this particular chart, you see a bar chart showing a side-by-side comparison. I think it was Food and Drug and Food and Nutrition. And it shows a pie chart as well, and it also shows you that scatter chart, that XY axis chart, that actually does plot points. And actually will document via every plot point as to every contract within the date range of what we call the signed date range. So you can do historical analysis, and quite simply to do forecasted analysis, all you have to do is put the contract completion date range. So what that does, it immediately changes a historical scatter chart or XY axis chart to a forecasting chart, and this paints the big picture as to, okay, it looks like 541611 will have a lot of contracts in the month of January with Food and Drug Administration, and my sweet spot is between 1 and 5 million. I don't want to waste my efforts for smaller contracts. You can actually plot what we call plot box, those specific plot points, and actually do diagnosis of those specific contracts and look in great detail at those particular contracts. So the beauty about this is that, 1, you can do historical analysis quite easily. 2, you could do forecasting analysis just with the completion date range based on your readiness. And again, small businesses have a much wider spectrum of readiness. Primes, they want to target a year in advance, and they don't really truly deviate too much from that, or 9 months or what have you. But small businesses are very agile, and that methodology really applies very well with that agile principle, that you can be able to move very, very quickly and obviously attack any upcoming contract that is going to be ready in 2 weeks, that you find out through a little turning over of the stone that intel, being in a market intelligence tool, that some other folks may not have found quite easily. So that's a great overview of some of the market intelligence facets in the sense of agency overview and the availability to do multiple agencies and actually vet them as to which ones would be the best target. So thank you very much for your time tonight.
And what's so important about this is that you save a lot of marketing time. And one of the measures that I'm going to be talking about in just a few minutes is the efficiency of your marketing program, which is the amount of dollars you win divided by the cost. And if you can reduce that cost, your efficiency obviously goes up, which means your processes are really slick and as good as anyone else's in the business. And having a good business intelligence tool like EZGov just saves you such a tremendous amount of time. Imagine if you're trying to scrape the data off of the agency websites. First of all, you get the data, but you won't provide the context in terms of history of the competition, history of the companies, and all of the ancillary information that's in there. So I'm a great fan of business intelligence tools. Anything that saves me time is going to help me increase my win rate. So let's now move from getting the GSA schedule to having a good way to determine what's going to be coming through that, so I can develop at least an initial list of opportunities, to what do we do to win them. Just because you have a schedule doesn't mean you're going to win a nickel. Just because you have a good list of opportunities that are realistic opportunities doesn't mean you're going to win a nickel. What really determines your win potential and your ability to meet the revenue is what you do with that list, which is positioning and readiness. So I'm going to talk about how to meet revenue goals through good pipeline management, and we'll focus on GSA schedules, but it doesn't matter whether the source of the revenue is a GSA schedule or some other contract. you still have to be well positioned and you still have to be ready to win that contract. So why would you need a GSA schedule in the first place? And Jennifer talked about this for just a bit. But the GSA schedule, it's just a contract vehicle. There's nothing special about it. It's just a way the government buys, and the government may buy in a variety of ways. So you would need a GSA schedule if your potential customers use it exclusively, and some do, or occasionally, and it is a vehicle that they turn to. And you want to have that vehicle, because if you don't have it, you can't get into the competition. And second, if you do have it, you can start to sell directly. You can position your company to perhaps avoid a broad competitive procurement process where there might be limited competition, and in some cases it could be a sole source, especially if you're a small disadvantaged organization. And so why does an agency turn to a GSA schedule? Well, there's a variety of reasons, and here are a few. To avoid a lengthy procurement process, because the GSA schedule holders have already been pre-qualified for the type of work that agency wants to compete, and they just have to issue the contract. You know, it's not a snap of the fingers, but they just have to issue that task or that contract competition, which is a lot less work and a lot less time consuming than a full-blown contract. It may respond to an immediate need. It's much quicker, so an immediate need can be addressed. It reduces, and an agency other than GSA may turn to a GSA schedule so they don't have to manage the procurement process. And those schedules, and there are many of them, are tailored to specific types of procurement needs, full life cycle costs, different parts of the life cycle. So they're already pre-configured to meet certain needs, and if that agency's need lines up with that contract vehicle, then it's very simple to use. Or it may just be the policy of the agency to turn to certain GSA schedules. But they do have other choices. So building your pipeline means more than just the GSA schedule, because the revenues don't care what vehicle they came through. And the ability to meet your revenue target really doesn't care which vehicle the money comes through. But you do want to make sure you have all of the tools in your quiver to make sure that you can compete fairly for all of the opportunities that come up. So you need to position for the opportunity regardless of the vehicle. You need to research your target agency regardless of the vehicle. You need to manage and research and position regardless of the opportunity, and you want to put that information into some sort of a spreadsheet or a database management system so that you're controlling it. And in the end, you need to make an informed bid decision regardless of the vehicle. And so some of the competitive information that you need to know in order to actually accomplish all of these goals, to position and research and control your opportunity, are highlighted by these questions. But I'm going to turn those into some action items so that you can see how to actually execute a pipeline development and capture program. I want to talk about two companies in the consulting business. One company has a revenue profile like this. I call that a successful company because look at what it's done. In 2000, it had a revenue run rate of maybe $2.5 million, and now, 10 years later, it's almost $10 million. So what is that? Increase of about almost 5 times. So it's a 500% increase in 10 years. That's a pretty successful company, but that's not an industry leader by any means. In the government consulting business, an industry leader really looks like this. Starting at the same rate, it may be up at 20 or 30 or 50 million or maybe even $100 million. The only difference between the industry leader and what I just call the successful firm is that the industry leader, the revenue profile of the industry leader is that it has a short tread and a steep riser. Notice that the revenue profile of these two firms are really the same. It's kind of a step function. Really what's happening is an organization wins a contract, grows it out, and then it'll either stall here or win another contract and it's recompete and then pop up again and go along and then win another contract and pop up again. So the revenue profile of the successful firm, what I call the industry leader, is really the same, except the industry leader has a much shorter tread and a much larger riser. In other words, it bids and wins more often. And in order to bid and win more often, you have to have ways to decrease the cost of capture. And EZGov is one way to do that, because your business intelligence costs are, to get the amount of information that you need to be competitive, are really reduced considerably. But you've got to take more steps than that in order to be the industry leader and show this kind of explosive growth. And many firms have explosive growth like that, and I've been part of several of them. I was with SAIC through the 80s and into the 90s, when we grew from about 50 million when I got there to a little over $1 billion 13 years later. At DynCorp and then at CSC, we went through explosive growth. At SRA International, we went through explosive growth. And the reason was that we had a discipline capture program. We built a solid list of opportunities. We built a pipeline of meaningful opportunities, and we managed those opportunities in a very analytical way. About 10% of the industry hits $10 million. The rest of them stall at that point and drop down. And I believe the difference between those that bang through 10 million and are well on their way to 100 million is the discipline they use in identifying and capturing contracts and bringing that discipline into all aspects of their business development program. I'm going to pull up a few slides from a training that I do that I think is a good way to look at business development and pipeline management for government contractors, whether you're turning to GSA schedules as the source of revenue or you're looking at individual standalone competitions. And what I'd like you to do is just think about your company and run through these questions and ask yourself whether you have these things in place. And I've organized this into a checklist. And if your firm does measure up in all of these areas, you've got a very competitive firm, and I would imagine your growth is extraordinary. If you can't put a check in most of these areas, whichever ones are open, you have a check in, that's a good, you've got a set of action items for things that you need to be doing after you leave this session today. But do you have health measures that measure the effectiveness of your overall business development program? I had a professor at one time who said that you don't really know something about an issue or a process or a program unless you can measure it. And that may not be universally true, but it certainly works in business development. If you can't measure different aspects of your business development program, then you really don't understand it. I use 5 metrics to measure the health of a business development program, and I'm going to explain what those are in this session. Does your firm have a way of determining the amount of bidding necessary to meet financial goals? Well, here's the issue. If you go after too many things, you're going to spread those resource dollars so thinly that your likelihood of winning is so low. If you only bid on a few things, your likelihood of winning may be up, but you may not be bidding enough stuff to meet your revenue goal. So what's the balance there? There are ways to determine that. And then do you know how much to spend on business acquisition, and then where to spend it within the acquisition pipeline? Establishing a meaningful list of opportunities. What does that really mean? Meaningful means there's something about what it's going to cost in order to get yourself well positioned for that opportunity. Does your company have a way to determine that and tie the costs of pursuing the opportunity to the size of that opportunity and the likelihood of winning it? And then several other here: bid pursuit information. What information do you need? Is there a decision framework that management can use to keep opportunities moving through the pipeline? And then looking at the way you do your teaming, whether you've got a strategic and analytical way to do the teaming, or whether that proposal team looks like a Christmas tree with a lot of bells and whistles hanging off of it. And then a few other things, that some of which I'm going to go over today and some of them that I'm not. But when you get this slides, and they will be available after the session, you'll get an email with them. I'd like you to take a look at this list and think about each of these 11 essential elements and think about whether you really have them well executed within your organization. And if you don't, and in this case there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in which this firm, or the way I've filled this out, they really don't have health measures or a way to measure pipeline quality or pipeline velocity, and they have no real way to adjudicate who gets on their team and why, that firm is going to be at a disadvantage to the organization that has a check in every one of those boxes. So let me talk about health measures, which is essential element 1 in that list. And I use 5 health measures, one I call firm contract backlog. And what that measures is the kind of the vitality, or really the urgency of your contract backlog. And firm contract backlog is all of the work that you have that's absolutely firm in your backlog, whether it's actually been, the work has actually been issued or not. If historically you know it's coming through, I would count that as well. But here I'm looking at 2 firms. One I call the frantic firm, because its contract backlog is dropping off rather quickly. You can see the size of the backlog is plotted on the left and the year on the right, and projecting forward, just adding up what's in that backlog, you see that firm is going to drop off very, very quickly, as opposed to the relaxed firm that has quite a strong contract backlog. And I think you can see why this is a measure of urgency. The frantic firm is really urgent and needs to do something awfully quickly, or it's going to have a tremendous number of layoffs within the next year. But that's only one of the measures that I use. And I want to talk about a few of the others. Sometimes people will take a look at a funnel to look at how you move opportunities through a systematic process. I like to use a pyramid, and I use really 5 stages, where the 5th one is the actual proposal. And it's very close to the Shipley process. In the early part of the evolution of that opportunity, I call the first 2 stages here leads. They're not particularly well qualified. We know this is work that we can prime. That makes it a stage 1 opportunity. If you have a stage 1 opportunity, you really don't know too much about it. But what you need to do is get it up to stage 2, and then try to get it to stage 3, and then stage 4. And what's happening when you move into each one of these stages is that the opportunity pursuit is more mature. And as that maturity increases, so does the win rate. So down here you may have a 1 in 20 chance of winning. Here, where you've answered the question whether the playing field is level or not, you may have a 1 in 10, maybe a 1 in 3 or 4, and then up here maybe a 1 in 2 chance of winning. So you've really increased your chances of winning quite a lot. But I called it these 2, the amount of dollars you have in these 2 stages, the leads backlog. And it's a measure of the vitality of your marketplace. If you can't find very many opportunities to put on your list, it doesn't mean you don't have a good business development program. What it probably means is clients are not buying what you're selling, and you need to either look at new markets, or you need to develop new services into those current clients. So there's a benchmark that I'm going to talk about that's a good way to determine whether you've got enough leads into whether you've got enough opportunities in your leads backlog. When you move up to stages 3 and 4, I call those qualified leads backlog, and then finally at the top is the proposal backlog, in which those proposals are submitted. I think about the qualified leads backlog as a measure of vibrancy, and the qualified proposal backlog as a measure of stability. Because if your firm contract backlog is very, very low, that doesn't mean you're necessarily in trouble, because you may have a very strong proposal backlog of very well qualified opportunities that have gone through a process where you've winnowed out those opportunities that you can't win, and you're only bidding opportunities that are really very, very healthy. And the 5th measure is sales efficiency, which is how effective your process is, and that's really where EZGov comes in. The more you use tools like that, the lower the overall cost of your procurements are going to be, your procurement pursuits are going to be, and the higher your sales efficiency will be. I just want to mention one more thing about the way that I look at the various stages. I try to make the questions that enable you to graduate from one level to another very, very simple. So in order to be a stage 1 opportunity, there's a very low bar here. All it means is that it's work that the company can do. But to get to the next level, I ask the question, is the playing field level? But what I mean by that is, does SAIC have a lock on the work? And there's many reasons why an incumbent or a firm with a particular set of skills may have a lock on the work, and you just can't win no matter what you do. It could be that there's a network of information out there and they own the network. It could be that there's a certain type of report to Congress that's being developed, and it would be very painful for the agency to change and train another contractor. Essentially, the playing field is not level. If you can find that out, and there are very, very, in some ways, simple ways to determine that, that's a good reason to no bid right over here. Imagine if you were able to get all of those opportunities off of your list in which you've determined that the incumbent is not going to lose regardless of the rumors that you're hearing. What you've got left are opportunities in which you are on the playing field. And if you only bid opportunities in which you're on the playing field, your win rate has got to go up. If you never bid from stage 1, never bid from stage 2, only bid from stage 3, where you know that you're competitive, you're on the playing field, or maybe in stage 4 where the client prefers you and you've had to wait it, and you've spent your positioning time tilting that playing field, your win rate has to go up. And we experienced explosive growth in each of the large companies that I was in, primarily because we never bid from stage 1 and 2. Doesn't this sound simple? Only bid those opportunities in which you know that you're at least competitive or you've tilted the playing field in your direction. So does your organization have health measures in order to determine whether or not you've got enough leads going on in each one of these each one of these stages to meet your revenue goal? If you don't, then it's time to look at these a little more carefully and determine whether or not you can get some benchmarks in here to let you know whether or not there's enough business development activities going on or not. Let me skip over to the bid decision framework, making no bid decisions before eroding resources. I'm going to pull up that same chart. In some ways, it looks like a cloud of dust in order to get a capture program started. There's lots of questions. How well does the client know us? Do we have a solution? Have they seen us before? What's the competition like? Are there changes in their program? I call all of that the competitive landscape. And there's so much information that you need in order to make a bid decision, to make an effective bid decision, and to really well position for an opportunity. But in order to make a no-bid decision, there's only a little bit of information that you need to know. So if you ask those questions early so that you can make a quick no-bid decision, you get all of those opportunities off that you couldn't win anyway, and you redirect those dollars that you didn't spend into the opportunities in which you do have a good opportunity of winning. So to make a bid decision, there's a lot to know. How well we're positioned. Do we have the right team? Does the client know us? Do they understand our solution? But to make a no-bid decision, there's only a few things that you need, like, does SAIC have a lock on the work? Why would you move any further if SAIC does have a lock on the work? And why would you ask a question that's relevant to a later stage, like, let's show the client a really good solution to a problem that they have, when they're never going to change anyway? So there's only a little bit of information that you need in order to make a no-bid decision so that you can focus all of those dollars on getting all of that information that you need for those opportunities that you really can't win. So the goal of an effective, systematic, analytical capture program and the development of a meaningful pipeline means to get up to stage 3 or 4 or off that list as fast as possible. Okay. Ooh, that didn't come out right. Okay. I want to talk about bid pursuit information and just ignore what came up on the right. I do this training program. I've been doing it for years. And whenever I do it, I always get a question I hadn't thought about. especially when I do it in-house for contractors. And I was doing this training about 3 years ago, and one of the division managers, a very experienced woman, asked me this question: what do you do when you go in to see a new client, or I go in to talk to a client in which I'm doing work about a procurement that's coming down, or the recompete of our task order, or work that another contractor is doing? What kind of questions do I ask them? And so I turned the question around and I said, well, what do you think you would ask? And this is what I got. What are your data gaps? Do you need a more rigorous risk assessment? Are you having web access issues? See what those questions are doing. They're defining the program. They're asking questions that if you did have the task order, you could develop a very good work plan. And those are program questions, and those are program meetings because they focus on the client's program needs. And so I wrote that list down, and then I wrote these over here, which I call questions for the business meeting. So that you ask questions that lead to a discussion about new contracts. So there are questions like, how are the incumbents doing? Not what are your data gaps. How are the incumbents doing? Is there an opportunity here for me to maybe step in? Do you currently view us as competitive? Do you think of us as an IT firm and the work that you're doing is site assessment? Are there must-have subs or consultants? Are there subs on the current vehicle, or are there subs on vehicles that you're using that are not this contract, but maybe some of the work is leaking out that would be good? What special capabilities must a prime have? What's going to make you comfortable and not wake up in the middle of the night worrying about your program? And who are the thought leaders and decision makers within your office? I think you can clearly see the difference between the program meeting questions on the left and the business meeting questions on the right. With these questions, I can answer I can address the type of issues that you have to address from going from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3. I actually spent a good deal of time with staff doing mentoring and getting them to understand the difference between program meetings and business meetings. And it's not hard. It's just that very often technical staff are not oriented this way. They're oriented toward the program, not oriented toward the business. So they're not thinking this way. And usually through some orientation, it's not that hard to get them to start to think this way. And the light bulb goes off, and it's like, oh yeah, I need to be thinking of the things on the right rather than things on the left. Okay. I'm going to go over one other point about preparation for winning and establishing a meaningful pipeline. And I call this proposal readiness, finding out if the proposal team is ready to go before they write the proposal. This is the difference between positioning and readiness. So let's assume that you've been after this client for about 9 months, and you've worked your way up through stages 1 into stage 2. You know that no one has a lock. Into stage 3, you know you're on the playing field, you're competitive, and now you've unveiled all of your solutions and you're whetting the appetite of that client, and you know the client favors you. So you're all set to go. So you've got this contract in the bag. Well, you might, but then you submit the proposal and you lost. And you say, well, what happened? We did everything right. We went from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3 to stage 4. We're all set. The client knew we were coming. They liked the team. Our solution was really attractive. So what happened? Well, here's what happened. You were well positioned. You understood the competitive landscape. You got the client to prefer you. You had special differentiators. There was a theory of the team. There were no little Christmas dangles hanging off of that. All of those firms were there for a reason. But what didn't happen was the readiness part of this. Storyboarding, management plan, resumes ready, project descriptions, sub-packages, etc. Very often I'll find that after clients understand the positioning part, they don't get a fast enough start on the RFP. So the RFP will come out, and then all of these things will start running around doing the storyboarding, the management plans, getting the resumes, when in fact all of that work could have been done a month or so before the RFP comes out. They have to be done anyway. Might as well do them before the RFP comes out, because you only have about 30 days to write that proposal, and sometimes even less on a GSA schedule. I like to insist on an executive summary, whether it's going to be submitted or not, because if the proposal manager can't write a clear, compelling executive summary, why would I think the proposal manager could lead an effort that results in a clear, compelling proposal? It's probably not going to happen. So here's a big red flag that the proposal team is really not ready to go, and more work has to be done on the theming and understanding what it is the arguments are, what the arguments really are for the firm to win. So are we just ready for the RFP or just positioned with the client? They're not the same. Positioning is only half of the equation for winning. Readiness is the second half. So regardless of whether you're using a GSA schedule or marketing opportunities without the GSA schedule, you still have to understand the competitive landscape, know the client preferences, do all of that research and marketing, and then also get everything done as early as you can before the RFP comes out so that you're only spending time on polishing and really improving the quality of the proposal rather than struggling through 30 days of sheer torture just trying to get something that's merely compliant but not compelling out the door. So if you followed what I'm talking about here, if you have a check in every one of those 11 boxes, this might be your result. And this is a list of contracts that I've had responsibility for winning over the past several years. Now, I don't spend all of my time on capture management or leading proposals for clients, although I do sometimes, and I have on occasion in the last few years. But in each one of these contracts, from the Department of Energy through Army and the Air Force, through a state contract, Federal Highway Administration, and then a new one that I just helped Gerlinger Solar win to install solar energy units on military bases. I was the decision maker in terms of whether or not we were well enough positioned, and it was really the go-no-go decision based on the information that I've really talked about here. The difference between winning and losing very often is not your credentials. You do have to have good credentials, but it doesn't mean you're going to win because another organization may have better credentials or may understand the opportunity better or may be better positioned to win it even though you have better credentials, or may be ready to write the proposal when you're not ready to write the proposal. So it's not just credentials. And in many of these contracts that were won, someone who I know well said to me, but you didn't have the credentials to win that. And that's just the point. You don't need all of the credentials to be the winner. What you need is you need to be very well positioned and ready to write that proposal, and you need to get all of the ones that are a lock for someone else or for the various reasons you really are not in a position to win. And so we're going to make a few offers to you, and before I open it up for questions, I'm just going to since I'm talking about the kinds of things that I talk about in training, I have a 2.5-hour online training video that I discounted heavily for the webinar series that we started last year, and I kept the price down to $79. But since this is the last in our series, until next Monday, I'm going to discount the 2.5-hour online webinar series to $49. And here's the discount code right here if you're interested in it. You'll get a tremendous amount of information and guidance, whether you're new to the business or you're a seasoned veteran. You're going to get well more than $49 out of here. Tim Walsh, who used to be the president of ePipeline, just said many times over that the value of the training far exceeds the price, and he just points out that what you get out of there is not just what to do to win, but how to do it. It's not what you need to do. You know that you need to win. It's how you're going to win. And if you go up to my website, ERS Advisors, click under Training or Business Acquisition Videos, and if you're interested in the training, it's going to only be $49 with that training code right there. So there are time for questions. But before we do that, let me see. We might as well just do the offers quickly first. So Jennifer, your session, the GovCon networking session, is just really well attended. And are you going to do the free admission again for this?
Yes. We are. So our first session, we had a winner who was out of state, so she received a Starbucks gift card and the same things from the second session. So for this session, since the date's the 26th, we'll take whoever the 26th person was to sign on for the event today. And if they're local, then they will get a free ticket to our next networking event. And if they're out of state, then we'll just send them a gift card for the comparable amount.
Great networking event. It is extremely well attended. And for EZGovOpps, which you should just sign up for the 5-day trial and take a look through it. I think you'll just be amazed at what's in there.
Absolutely, Ed. And I also want to surprise Jennifer. I want to offer a half-a-year membership for EZGovOpps for a one-seat license. And for all attendees to attend the next networking kind of event for Jennifer. So Jennifer, I'll take care of you on that particular venue with a coupon code for that. But and that's about a $300 value. So that you're trying to entice you a little bit more to actually attend our event. It's a great event. With EZGovOpps, we offer a free 5-day trial. It's something that we want you to roll your sleeves up, dive right into the tool. We strongly encourage a WebEx training session, even though the tool is extremely intuitive and very easy to use. Just with the guidance of one of our support team members, you'll get a tremendous amount of value. And probably a much better understanding, especially the scatter charts. There's a couple charts in there just to be able to understand how to drive that data, and to hopefully give you that competitive edge. That's what our task in hand is. So please reach out to contact us. One of my lead sales reps, Mike Neff, his information is posted on the screen now. And our site, very simply, just EZGovOpps.com. Please visit our site. You can sign up immediately, no credit card needed for the free sign-up. Again, 5-day free trial. There's videos. There's roughly 21 videos to actually give you a little snippet of each search module as to how best to utilize that particular module. And obviously, feel free to ask any questions after Ed does his conclusion. And we thank everybody for their time today.
Jimmy Baker's not here, but and the slides will be here. But he has the best book about how to win from the federal government. Where's the money? And there's also an offer from Set Aside Alert for a discount on your subscription. If you're a small business, you should just have it. It's a question of getting all of the right information in order to beat the competition, which is really what this is all about. So let me pop up oops, I just hit the wrong button on the questions, and I don't know where they went. I may have just erased the questions. First time I've ever done that. They're probably here on my desk somewhere. But I inadvertently hit the wrong button. So let me see if I can recover here. And so I just made a mistake, and it looks like I just X'd out the questions. But if any of you would like to ask a question, if you would just hit the raised hand, which is right by your name on the GoToWebinar slide box. The questions will be in the download we get from EZGov from GoToWebinar. So I will make sure we answer those after the fact and writing back to you all. So I apologize for hitting that thing wrong. But we'll just take a second, and if you did ask a question you would like to be called on, I'm just going to unlink you. So we do have one. So Richard Lascalet, I'm going to unmute you, and you should be able to talk.
Yeah, I just, you went so fast past the slide that had the discount offer on it and the code to use. If you could, that one, yes, okay.
I'll leave that up.
Thank you.
Great. Well, I'm glad you're interested. And the main tab is called Training, and underneath it is Business Acquisition Videos. We got. I know we had a few questions about Oh, and there are a lot of hands coming up, so that's great. There were some questions about whether this would be available, and you will get an email to get all of this. So, Amato Stellato, you are on. Amato, are you there? Lorraine Scott. Lorraine, I could hear you a little bit in the background, but it sounds like you're not coming through. Okay, and then Mariana Levy, I'm going to click and enable your audio. Mariana?
Hello?
Hello?
I had the same question that was answered.
Okay. And I will give Lorraine give Lorraine another try. Lorraine, are you there? Okay. Well, okay. That was it. So listen, I apologize for erasing your questions, but we will answer them after the fact because I know GoToWebinar didn't lose them, and it looks like that is it at the end. We're almost to the end of the hour anyway. I appreciate all of you stuck into the very end. We'll be scheduling some additional webinars, and we do have one more coming up. How to engage business and government through social media with a guest speaker, Mike Hackmer, who's been on before. That's a free session. I mentioned that Jimmy Baker and I are doing a paid session, an hour and a half, to cover hunt, capture, and win, which is really the heart of the matter, hunting the opportunities, the capturing of the opportunities, which is all of the positioning and readiness, and then making sure you're actually going to win. What more do you really want to know about government business development than how to hunt, how to capture, and how to make sure that you win? And the access will be on either one of those websites. If you have any other additional questions, please contact the participants. And it looked like that opened right back up again. And our emails are right on the slides, and I'll get those out to everyone by the end of the day. And I appreciate everybody sticking on to the end. And again, I apologize about the questions. First time it's happened. And I really appreciate Jennifer and Jamie Bratten doing the series with us. It is the third and final one in our GSA schedule. And I hope the audience, you've all gotten quite a bit out of it. And in addition to the slides for this session, I'll make sure that the slides for the other two sessions are available too. So when you get the email, you'll be able to download the slides from all three of the sessions. And so with that, I'm going to end the webinar and just again thank the panel members and the audience for staying right through to the very end.